Hey guys, welcome back to Lingaroo. We've got a great video in store for you today. You know, we've been doing this about 9 months, I think, and we have developed quite a following, and I'm excited about that. Thank you guys for joining us video after video. It's great to have you with us. And today we're going to do a special video just for you. We are going to do a question and answer session answering some of the specific questions that you guys have either put in the comments down below or messaged me through email. So don't go away. You know, maybe you've had a question and you haven't put it in the comments below. I really want to encourage you to do that. You know, my why, the reason I'm doing this is to come alongside of you guys. If you haven't seen some of our previous videos, I really believe with my whole heart that you are the expert. You're the expert on your kiddo. And my job, even though I've had some training in speech therapy and I have a degree in that, but you guys are the ones who are there with your child every day, day in and day out, and you know your kiddo better than anybody. So I really count on you guys to share with me exactly what it is that you need, and give me ways and give me ideas of how I can come along and support you even better. And so I'm grateful for those of you who have submitted questions, and we're going to kind of dive in and address some of those today. So this next kind of part of the question and answer session is in large part related to the field of autism. I've had a lot of you find me through a search related to autism or a search related to the video I did on echolalia. If you haven't seen that, you'll want to go back and check that out as well. But I really need to tell you, and this is a huge part of what I want to talk to you about today, I am not an expert on autism, right? And I don't know that a lot of the experts that a lot of the people that we consider experts are truly experts. I would say that the true experts on autism are the adults who are autistic, the autistic adult community. And I've included some links down in the show notes below. There is a group of people, a growing group of amazing individuals who have grown up maybe with a diagnosis of autism, or maybe they got that diagnosis even later in life as an adult. Maybe they are an adult and their child was diagnosed as autistic, and so now they're kind of seeing some of the same characteristics or the same difficulties that they remember having as a child, and so they're getting that diagnosis later in life. Whatever it is, I want you guys to think about this as parents, that I believe they are one of our greatest resources in understanding the needs to understand this idea of self-advocacy, right? There's the the Autism Self-Advocacy Network. I've put a link down below for that. Many of them are here on YouTube. I've tagged some videos down below that I think are fabulous, that you're going to want to check out too. And these are autistic adults who are self-advocating and advocating for the rights and the needs of other children who are autistic, and who they have now kind of grown up in this world of all the therapies and all of these things that we do as parents, or that we do as providers, kind of our best foot forward, trying to help out as much as we can. But I think sometimes we don't stop and listen to what they're saying about all of it, or what their impressions were about all of it. So that would be kind of my best advice, right? For some of you who have asked me questions about echolalia, about scripting, about delayed echolalia, and we're going to be talking about that some today, to the best of my knowledge, or to the best of my understanding. But I would really encourage you to check out some of these other writers who are actually talking about this from the perspective of what they remember, right? One of your questions, kind of getting into that, one of your questions that you submitted was about delayed echolalia. So we talked about direct echolalia, which is like the, do you want juice or milk? Juice or milk, right? And your child repeats immediately kind of what you've said, rather than making a choice or rather than answering the question, your child echoes back your question to you. We talked about that in the video before. But then there is this idea of what's called delayed echolalia, right? Or repetition that's done kind of after the fact, or it could even be a while after the fact. It could be that your child is repeating strings of a script. So it's also called scripting, where they are answering you or engaging in conversation using actual words that they've memorized or heard from a favorite cartoon or an exchange that maybe happened previously. Right, and so there is this idea of immediate echolalia, but then also this idea of delayed echolalia or scripting. Okay, so again, as you all have asked the question, like, what is this? Why is my child doing this? Or how can I stop this? Were some of the questions I got. I would say, again, let's look to the adult population, and you can learn so much from them as far as maybe why they remember doing it as a child. And maybe they don't do it anymore as an adult, but they remember doing it as a child, and they can tell you some of their reasons. A lot of the reasons that I have learned from this population is that sometimes they did it to rehearse language. We have a term in speech therapy called subvocal rehearsals, right? And so it's kind of this subvocal, so it's kind of beneath your voice, right? Where you're kind of talking, and you're kind of almost whispering to yourself, and you're rehearsing what it is that you want to say. And I have seen a lot of kiddos do this in my clinic, where you ask them a question and they start kind of the whispering and that subvocal rehearsal. And I believe this is a huge part of language development for these kiddos, right? And I don't necessarily think it's something that we have to stop. You know, in our video about echolalia, we talked about ways to work through it or to push through it. And I think it's okay to still try to model conversational turn taking, right? To incorporate the microphone or whatever it is, and to model that. But it's not necessarily something I don't think that we have to absolutely put the kibosh on or stop. They do it sometimes, like I said, for rehearsing language. Sometimes it's stimulatory, right? One of the hallmarks of the diagnosis of autism is stimulatory behavior, right? So it could be physical stimming, maybe hand flapping or tapping or doing some kind of a repetitive motion. But then there is also this idea that there would be like a vocal stim or a vocal stimulation, you know, something that basically it's just kind of fun, right? A lot of autistic adults will tell you that it's just kind of fun. They just enjoy saying those things over again or repeating things because they like the way the words sound to them, or they like the way it feels on their tongue. So sometimes it can be just stimulatory in nature. We also talked about in the video that sometimes it's a placeholder, right? Sometimes we see echolalia by a child who isn't necessarily even on the autism spectrum, and they're using it more as a placeholder for processing, right? So they've kind of learned they're supposed to say something. They're not quite sure what to say or how to correctly answer your question, so they're going to repeat it. Or they're going to use something else, you know, this delayed echolalia. They're going to use a script that they've learned and memorized that's easy for them or that's fun for them. And they're going to put that in there as kind of a placeholder while they're actually kind of processing through what it is you asked and what they need to be saying. So that's another time we see it. Like I said, again, you know, what can you do as a parent or as a provider, a caregiver? I would say to just go ahead and allow it. Allow them this expression, this freedom to stem, this freedom to experience their voice and experiment with their voice and to build their language. Again, I think the more we learn from this population, the more we're going to start to see how integral this is as a part of development, as a part of their the way they rehearsed language or rehearsed questions or rehearsed conversational turns, right? And I think we can encourage it while still teaching them and training them that typical conversational question answer format that is also an important skill to learn as well. Another thing you can do is to model scripts of language, right? So we know that they are absorbing and picking up all of this language from maybe a favorite cartoon or a story that they've heard on YouTube or on TV or something. So what if we actually model scripts for requesting lunch, right? What does that script look like? One idea we use in speech therapy is called social stories, right? Where we present a story, something that they can be engaged in, kind of over at the side. They're not necessarily having to do the talking themselves, but we're telling them a story about a little boy and a little girl, and they're navigating a setting or a scene, and this is the script they use, right? These are the things they say with the hopes that as they learn that script, then they can apply it maybe at the cafeteria or at lunch at school or wherever they find themselves, right? As they start to learn these social scripts, these social stories, they can start to integrate them into their own world as well. Again, go back to some of the earlier videos I did. If you haven't seen them, just those basic language stimulation. We did language stimulation 1, language stimulation 2. There are some great strategies in there where you can just model language. Again, we know that these kiddos are absorbing this information. They're absorbing this language like a sponge, right? So that's all the more reason why you want to be incorporating language into everyday life with that self-talk, talking about what you're doing as you're doing it. Parallel talk, talking about what their child is doing while he or she is doing it. Expanding their utterances, right? Using every opportunity within the context of those routines that you're already doing to help stimulate and model language and social interactions for your child. And finally, I would just encourage you to, and we've talked about this before, incorporate siblings, incorporate your spouse or your partner. And dinner time is a great time to do this. Again, to model turn taking, to model conversation. Who wants bread? I do. What do you want? I want bread, please, right? And you have a model there, and you all take a turn. Daddy takes a turn, mommy takes a turn, siblings take turns. You get to your child who is having difficulty and you say, okay, it's your turn now, right? And you help them and model with them and help them to navigate that requesting or that question and answer exchange after they've gotten to see all of these other models from their siblings and the other parents involved. Okay, so I hope that was helpful to answer your questions about delayed echolalia and scripting and kind of what it is or what it could be doing or what they could be doing with it, and then kind of some ideas of how to address it. Along those lines of repeating, I had a parent reach out and ask, is some repeating normal? And I would say yes, absolutely. Kind of like what we were just talking about. Some of this echolalia or repeating can just be a processing thing. It doesn't necessarily have to be that it is autism or that it is a language delay or a language disorder. I do see kids repeating just again kind of as a placeholder, kind of as a space in time marker, right? They've kind of watched us. They've watched our conversations. They know they're supposed to say something. And so they may just repeat it while they're trying to figure out what to say. So definitely keep an eye on it, right? Kind of that watch and see. Try some of the strategies on some of the other language stimulation videos and kind of give it a few months to see if they continue to develop language and to continue to kind of phase out of that, or if it remains a concern. And I think you mentioned that you are being followed by a pediatrician, and that's always critical as well. So if you're watching this and you guys aren't checking in with pediatricians, that's important to do as well. So yeah, I wouldn't worry quite yet, but just definitely continue to model language and watch and kind of see how that development progresses. Okay, and then my last question I'm going to answer, I had a mama write in about her 4-year-old son who is on the autism spectrum and that he loves to sing songs. And again, kind of with this idea of echolalia, she was saying that most of the language she hears outside of these songs or outside of these kind of rote, scripted ideas like maybe letters, numbers, things like that he's learned, that his conversational or spontaneous language isn't as robust. And so I would say, what if, again, kind of thinking about those toys that we talked about earlier, what if we incorporate some of that singing, some of what he loves, into everyday life? I don't know, maybe this comes from me because I'm kind of a crazy mama sometimes, and I like to sing and dance with my kids, but I like to make up songs, and I like to make up songs about what we're doing. And this is a great way, I think, when you have a kiddo who loves music, to get them engaged and to maybe get them to tune in to some language that they maybe not be tuning into if it was outside of that song. So, for example, if we're making breakfast, who wants pancakes? I do, right? And you kind of sing it and kind of jazz it up and make it fun and engaging for your child. And again, thinking about, what does your child love, right? What does your child look forward to? What are they most engaged by, whether it's toys or songs or videos or whatever it is, and thinking about ways that you can start to incorporate some of that, right? If you're wanting to work on questions and answers, put them to a song. Right? Think of some of those early nursery rhyme songs, like kind of that, where is Thumpkin? That one, here I am, right? Who wants pancakes? Right? I don't care what it is. Like, just make it fun, make it engaging, and cater it to your child and where your child's at and what he's working on. If you're engaged with a speech therapist, or if they're in school and you have teachers, who are also kind of in this mix, ask them what they're working on at school. Ask them kind of, what's the next step of where is he? Where are we going next? And think about ways and brainstorm with them even. How can we, incorporate some songs into his day to make it more fun and to make it more engaging? None of us wants to be in a room, right, with toys that, maybe not adults, we wouldn't be thinking about toys, but like as an adult, I don't want to go into a room. I'm trying to think, maybe when I took German class, right? I know I talk about that a lot. It's pretty traumatic for me. But in German class, if it's boring, if we're listening to the CD and, I'm not understanding it, it's not engaging, it's not a topic I would ever care about, right? One time we had to sing, or they had to do this song about currywurst. It's like sausages with this curry sauce. And who wants that? Right? Like that wasn't motivational for me. I didn't, my ears didn't perk up when I heard this song about currywurst. And that's just a silly example, but think about that, right? Like, think about when you were in school, or when you were when you went to college, and when the professor was engaging and funny and talked about things that were of interest to you, how much more you learned, right? And I don't know why we would just kind of forego that, right? When we think about kids on the autism spectrum, why on earth would we just throw everything out the window that we know about children and how they learn and engagement and motivation and all these things? And why would we throw that all out the window and just transition to, forced compliance and these drills that are just mundane and boring, right? That makes no sense to me as a human, as a mama. And so I don't know why sometimes we tend to do that. So again, going back to your question, incorporate some songs. If you want to, you've reached out once, reach out again, and maybe you and I can email back and forth and brainstorm about specific ideas of music that you can incorporate, or ways that we could kind of set some questions and answers to song and to make it more fun for your kiddo. All right, so guys, I hope this has been helpful. I love this. I love connecting with you guys, even virtually here. And hopefully, as I've done so, I have no doubt that we've kind of answered these questions for a lot of you guys, even if it wasn't a specific question that you wrote to me. Hopefully, this gives you some ideas of how you can personalize this to your own kiddo and help your child develop language within the context of what you're doing within your home. All right, so if you haven't already, click and subscribe, guys. Join this Lingaroo troop. And again, go back and check out some of these other videos, and we'll see you next time here at Lingaroo, where language comes to life.